In the spring of 1948, a group of 8 men sat together to discuss a move that would massively impact the future of the Middle East forever. Ostensibly a debate of sorts, the question hanging in the air, with time running out to decide, was whether to recognize a new Jewish state in Palestine. On the opposing ends were the State Department, led at that time by the towering figure of General George C. Marshall, the other end being represented by the White House. President Harry S. Truman had asked a domestic advisor, Clark Clifford, to deliver the case for recognition. At 4 p.m. on Wednesday, May 12th, a cloudless, sweltering day, we assembled in the Oval Office. "Mr. President," I said, "I strongly urge you to give prompt recognition to the Jewish state immediately after the termination of the British Mandate on May 14th. This would have the distinct value of restoring the President's firm position in support of the partition of Palestine. Such a move should be taken quickly, before the Soviet Union or any other nation recognizes the Jewish state." I knew my comment would displease Marshall and Leavitt. I had noticed Marshall's face reddening with suppressed anger as I talked. When I finished, he exploded. "Mr. President, I thought this meeting was called to consider an important and complicated problem in foreign policy. I don't even know why Clifford is here. He is a domestic advisor, and this is a foreign policy matter. I fear the only reason Clifford is here is that he is pressing a political consideration with regard to this issue. I don't think politics should play any part in this." The situation became ugly when, Clifford writes, Marshall spoke again. He was still furious. Speaking with barely contained rage and more than a hint of self-righteousness, he made the most remarkable threat I have ever heard anyone make directly to a president. "If you follow Clifford's advice, and if I were to vote in the election, I would vote against you." Everyone in the room was stunned. Here was the indispensable symbol of continuity whom President Truman revered and needed, making a threat that, if it became public, could virtually seal the dissolution of the Truman administration. Marshall must have taken the president's decision deeply personally, as Clifford wrote, "Not only did he never speak to me again after that meeting, but, according to his official biographer, he never again mentioned my name." Then, at the end of that day, still steaming, he did something quite unusual, although the president and I were unaware of it at the time. Certain that history would prove him right, he wanted his personal comments included in the official State Department record of the meeting. Those comments are immortalized in the Foreign Relations of the United States History series. A top-secret memorandum of conversation by the Secretary of State, from the day of the quarrel, provides George C. Marshall's side of the story. The president said that he had called the meeting because he was seriously concerned as to what might happen in Palestine after May 15th. The president then invited Mr. Clark Clifford to make a statement. Mr. Clifford's point was strongly to urge the president to give prompt recognition to the Jewish state after the termination of the mandate on May 15th. I remarked to the president that, speaking objectively, I could not help but think that the suggestions made by Mr. Clifford were wrong. I thought that to adopt these suggestions would have precisely the opposite effect from that intended by Mr. Clifford. The transparent dodge to win a few votes would not in fact achieve this purpose. The great dignity of the office of the president would be seriously diminished. The counsel offered by Mr. Clifford was based on domestic political considerations, while the problem which confronted us was international. I said bluntly that if the president were to follow Mr. Clifford's advice, and if in the elections I were to vote, I would vote against the president. A 1968 oral history interview with Truman White House Appointment Secretary Matthew J. Connolly, the interviewer asked him, "On the subject of the recognition of Israel, how instrumental was Clark Clifford, in your opinion, in formulating the events of that time, in convincing Mr. Truman that the state of Israel should be recognized as quickly as it was?" Connolly responds, "Well, the decision had already been made with the assistance of David K. Niles, who handled the minority problems, and myself. We were the fundamental movers." The interviewer asked subsequently, "Why did you take the position that you did?" Connolly responds, "For 2 reasons. 1, it was humanitarian, and 2, it was good politics." And I raised the question with Mr. Truman, how many Arab votes are there in the United States? Where does the Democratic Party get its financing from? And the answer was apparent. The name David Niles is ubiquitous in this early history, and when asked about him specifically, Connolly declares, David Niles was a very bright political analyst. He was quiet. He was receptive. He was never out in front. During the Roosevelt administration, they used to call him the backstairs boy at the White House. With regard to the 1948 election, the interviewer asked the golden question, how important, in your opinion, was the recognition of the State of Israel early in 1948 to the Democratic victory the following November? Connolly admits, there's no question about it. He had practically a solid Jewish vote. He also had financial contributions to the campaign in 1948 that he never would have had without Jewish support. It was a matter of, more or less, just pure politics to me. Perhaps Truman truly sympathized with the plight of the Jews, who just years earlier had suffered at the hands of the Nazis, and perhaps his fundamentalist upbringing helped shape his thinking with regard to Middle East policy. However, it would not be telling the whole story to omit the other considerations that he wrote about, for example, in his memoirs. The facts were that not only were there pressure movements around the United Nations unlike anything that had been seen before, but that the White House, too, was subjected to a constant barrage. I do not think I ever had as much pressure and propaganda aimed at the White House as I had in this instance. The persistence of a few of the extreme Zionist leaders, actuated by political motives and engaging in political threats, disturbed and annoyed me. Some were even suggesting that we pressure sovereign nations into favorable votes in the General Assembly.